it rolling, Bob?
Is it rolling, Bob?
Is it rolling, Bob?
Hi folks, and this is Gregory speaking, and this is Bob Dylan, a head full of ideas. We're now on season 4, and I think this is episode 12, if I'm keeping score properly. Anyway, this is part 3 of my examination of Dylan's love songs of the mid-1960s. Some of these are a little bit obscure. And particularly this next one, which has been rather sort of ignored in lots of ways. Love is Just a Four-Letter Word, also written around this time period, is one of Dylan's least known songs, mainly because there's no record of him actually recording it, even on bootlegs. It's most associated with Joan Baez, who has claimed in a number of interviews that she rescued it from the back of a piano when Dylan had forgotten it. This is a little hard to believe, as this is one of Dylan's most subtle and unusual pieces. It is also quite possible that when he wrote the song, he was caught in at least one love triangle involving Baez herself. Perhaps he actually intended to give the song, which seems far too carefully constructed to be a throwaway, to her anyway. Her extraordinary pure cut glass vocal style certainly suits its detached and wistful tone. The song is not in any way about her relationship with Dylan. The title phrase is a common aphorism which has been around since the 1920s, generally depicting a cynical view of love. However, the term four-letter word, which is generally associated with swear words, can also be a simple description without such connotations. Dylan plays on this ambiguity in a song which he addresses the nature of love itself, despite the fact that none of the characters actually appears to be in love. But the narrator's observation of a broken love affair leads him to come to certain philosophical conclusions regarding the true nature of love itself. The song begins with the narrator looking back at a meeting with a woman in a cafe. The first lines draw us into the story with the mysterious statement, "Seems like only yesterday I left my mind behind," which already seems to indicate that this will be a ruminative piece. The meeting takes place down in the Gypsy Cafe with a friend of mine. This friend of a friend has a newborn baby which sits heavy on her knee, indicating that she's a single parent. We might now expect the woman to relate a tale of woe, but instead she declares that she is happy to be free from what she describes as slavery, presumably the relationship or marriage to the narrator's friend. We are told that her eyes showed no trace of misery. Despite this, the first use of the title phrase as a refrain seems to indicate the narrator's view that she has been abandoned and that, in her case, love is indeed a dirty word, although she doesn't want to admit it, perhaps. We are then presented with a highly atmospheric description of the scene outside the cafe. Outside a rambling storefront window, cats meow to the break of day. It appears that the narrator and the woman have been engaged in an intense all-night conversation. Perhaps the narrator has been making an appeal to her on behalf of his friend. But like those wailing cats, whatever he has said has been just so much noise. He confesses that he is out of his depth in this situation. Me, I kept my mouth shut. I had no words to say. And he admits that my experience was limited and underfed. He then listens as she talks to the father of the baby, who has presumably just arrived. We may presume that he wants to be reunited with her, or is offering to take some responsibility for the child. The details of the conversation are not revealed. The narrator, who has hidden away but is secretly listening in, hears her repeat the title phrase, which clearly indicates that she's not in love with the father. After this spot of eavesdropping, the narrator leaves the scene quietly to return to his own chaotic love life, which he describes as drifting in and out of lifetimes unmentionable by name. It's quite a memorable description. He also says he's been searching for my double. Dylan is famously a Gemini. The narrator here seems to suggest that his search for love is an impossible quest, as really he is just looking for a mirror image of himself. He tells us that he has been looking for complete evaporation to the core, as if he expects that when he finds love, his creative spirit will be drained. In any case, the search for his soulmate has been unsuccessful. He tells us that I tried and failed at finding any door. Given that this search for love has dominated his life, he now finds the notion that love is just a four-letter word absurd. Of course, he reasons, love is much more than that. In what was probably intended to be the final verse, the narrator now speaks from the present day. He reflects back on the woman's conversation with her ex-partner, saying that he never quite understood her point of view when she used that ambiguous phrase. But now, having experienced multiple attempts to find love, he realises that she was right. The next few lines are among the most anguished and heartfelt in Dylan's entire oeuvre. After waking enough times to think I see, the holy kiss that's supposed to last eternity, blow up in smoke, its destiny falls on strangers, travels free. He defines the kind of idealised love he's been searching for in religious terms. A holy kiss, otherwise known as a kiss of peace, is a traditional ritualised Christian greeting. In St. Paul's epistle to the Corinthians, followers are instructed to greet one another with a holy kiss. Here, Dylan transforms this into a description of how love is described in all those sentimental songs. But now he depicts it as exploding and spreading its constituent parts quite randomly. Thus, finding love is not impossible, but is largely a matter of luck. If a piece of the shattered holy kiss reaches you, you may be blessed to achieve this spiritual union with a partner. This revelation leads the narrator to conclude that I know now that traps are only set by me. He realises that he has been making it impossible for him to find this holy love by setting artificial parameters. He now tells us that he does not really need to be assured that love is just a four-letter word. But now the meaning of the phrase has changed. Love itself is not a dirty word or a curse that creates torturous pain. It is, after all, just a word. And words as this and so many other Dylan songs demonstrate can be interpreted in many different ways. When placed in different contexts or when sung differently, they may change their meanings. Thus, the narrator realises that love can take many forms. Even if one finds a supposedly perfect partner, the relationship may not last for eternity. Love itself will change as years go by and may morph into many different shapes. The realisation that love is merely an ambiguous concept rather than the definite description of a goal one must reach helps him recognise that this single word is inadequate to describe the range of feelings and behaviours it is usually taken to signify. The narrator has only discovered this revelatory truth by observing love, or the lack of it, in others. The final verse that Baez sings is rather controversial. In the official lyrics, the Holy Kiss verse concludes the song. This seems entirely logical given its revelatory nature, but Baez, in a recorded version, adds an extra verse. Some commentators have theorised that Baez actually wrote this verse as it appears to be directed from her to Dylan. Certainly the poetic diction is less assured than in the rest of the song. The opening, strange it is to be beside you, many years the tables turned, is a bit awkwardly ungrammatical, as are the following lines. And it is very, very weird indeed to hear words like forever, fleets of ship run through my mind, I cannot cheat. It's like looking in a teacher's face, complete. The fleets of ships metaphor sits rather awkwardly with the rest of the song. Perhaps the most effective lines are those in the simple conclusion, I can say nothing to you but repeat that love is just a four-letter word. Baez seems to be acknowledging that Dylan has been her teacher, not just about music perhaps, but about love. She has performed the song on many occasions. In live shows, however, she has almost always omitted Dylan's final verse and substituted with her own, which, despite its lacking the poetic grace of Dylan's words, may have been much truer to her own feelings. Bringing It Back Home features two quite beautiful love songs which appear to provide some resolution to Dylan's journey through the vicissitudes of love. His songs now take on multiple layers of ambiguity. She Belongs to Me is here a slow, gentle blues, although in its multiple iterations throughout Dylan's career it has taken many forms. The version on Self-Portrait, recorded at the Isle of Wight in '69, presents it almost as a mock show tune. There are many covers, including a meditative performance from Jerry Garcia and Dave Grisman, 1992, a raw vocal version by Leon Russell, and an extended prog rock extravaganza by The Nice in 1969. The song is fairly minimal, consisting of just 4 short verses. In traditional blues manner, the first 2 lines of each verse are repeated. This has the effect of underlining the narrator's devotion to his subject, who he seems almost to worship. Certainly, he seems quite prepared to sublimate himself to her wishes. The woman, who certainly cannot be called a girl, seems to be emotionally mature, immensely self-assured and self-confident. She has her own independent artistic life, which Dylan celebrates. She's got everything she needs, he sings. She's an artist, she don't look back. That's where the title of the film came from, Don't Look Back, of course. In his eyes, she has magical gifts which have turned his view of the world upside down. She can take the dark out of the nighttime and paint the daytime black. In the second and fourth verses, he switches the mode of address to you, so broadening the scope of the song. So he continues, you will start out standing, proud to steal her anything she sees, but you'll wind up peeking through her keyhole down upon your knees. Imitating that his love for this powerful woman will be so intense that he will even break the law to please her. The last line has definite sexual connotations, with the suggestion that the woman will dominate him sexually. He devotes himself to her pleasure while on his knees by giving his attention to her keyhole. Clearly this is the same orifice as in Virginia Liston's 1924 blues, you got the right key but the wrong keyhole. The second half of the song again begins with a description of the woman's qualities. We hear more testimonies to her strength of character. She never stumbles, she's got no place to fall, and that she's nobody's child, the law can't touch her at all. There's a slight nod to the famous tearjerker, Nobody's Child, first recorded by Hank Snow in 1949. But here the phrase, originally describing a pitiable figure, becomes another mark of the woman's independence and power. In one of the song's most striking images, we hear that she wears an Egyptian ring that sparkles before she speaks. This suggests that she has magical or entrancing qualities. She's a hypnotist collector, you are a walking antique, reverses the conceit of the title phrase, which is now revealed as being ironic. In fact, the singer has become part of her own collection. The song ends in a typically low-key blues style. The instruction is given to bow down to her on Sunday, salute her when her birthday comes. For Halloween, buy her a trumpet. For Christmas, give her a drum. Seems that in the singer's mind, this ethereal creature requires such ritualized tributes. Love minus zero, no limit. That's love minus zero, stroke, no limit. It's always got to be written like that. Can be seen as the culmination of this series of songs. Here, Dylan's poetic powers are fully invoked, so that even its simplest lines can set off multiple interpretations. As with She Belongs to Me, the female subject is idealized and given special powers. But Love Minus Zero is more consciously poetic, employing a number of literary allusions with much shifting and surreal imagery. In many ways, this lyrical complexity foreshadows Dylan's work in his densely ambiguous songs of the late 1990s and 2000s. The way the title, which does not appear in the song, is presented is very unusual, with that forward slash between its 2 parts. At the time, Dylan insisted that this was a mathematical formula. Love divided by nothing can, of course, only result in infinity. That's one for the mathematicians out there, trying to work that one out. The song is indeed an awesome celebration of love, which is simultaneously limitless and grounded in reality. Difficult balance to pull off, of course. The song's unusual variation of rhyme, para-rhyme and no rhyme is used for considerable effect. Each 4-line verse begins with a rhyming couplet, followed by a non-rhyming line. The final line of each set of 2 verses rhymes with that of the next verse. This structure creates a sense of anticipation as we wait patiently for the rhymes to arrive. The lyrics have a certain contradictory logic which seems to indicate the influence of Zen Buddhism, or at least the intellectual version of Zen that had so influenced the beat poets, as well as Dylan's soon-to-be wife, Sarah. The woman is not, as in She Belongs to Me, some kind of goddess to be worshipped. In many ways, she appears to be quite down to earth. She certainly exudes a philosophical calm, which the narrator appears to be highly impressed by. The first verse begins with an immediate logical paradox. We are told that, my love, she speaks like silence. The sense of apparent contradiction recalls the first line of Sonnet 130, my mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. The narrator seems to be asserting that his lover is an extremely wise woman who can sum up any situation in a few quiet words. We learn that she has no ideals or violence. He seems to have absolute trust in her, and this is summed up in the next brilliantly compressed but extremely evocative lines. She doesn't have to say she's faithful, but she's true, like ice, like fire. And the wonderful way that Dylan just does this with a comma, which is true, like ice, like fire, not true like ice or like fire. That really makes it something special. The juxtaposition of ice and fire not only suggests that she would never betray him, but also gives a sense of cosmic balance of yin and yang in perfect harmony. In the next verse, we learn that the narrator's lover cannot be bought off by sentimental gifts. People carry roses and make promises by the hours. My love, she laughs like the flowers. Valentines can't buy her. She remains incorruptible. There are echoes here of the 17th century poet Robert Henrich's To the Virgins, To Make Much of Time, which begins, gather ye rosebuds while ye may, old time is still a-flying, and this same flower that smiles today, tomorrow will be dying. As well as more lines from Sonnet 130. I have seen roses damasked red and white, but no such roses see I in her cheeks. There are also hints of Blake's Sick Rose, Wordsworth's Daffodils, and the famous anti-war folk ballad, Where Have All the Flowers Gone? In all of these works, flowers are animated symbols of pure love and beauty, even if they have been corrupted. Yet the mention of Valentines, greeting cards which are often accompanied by flowers, especially roses, indicates that her affection cannot be bought. Having established his lover as a kind of pure ethereal spirit, Dylan then examines various aspects of the ways in which many people spend their lives attempting to find truth, happiness and fulfillment. With the wonderfully succinct, in the dime stores and bus stations, people talk of situations, read books, repeat quotations, draw conclusions on the wall. He appears to be suggesting that much of this philosophizing is rather futile. His lover knows there's no success like failure, but failure is no success at all. Another apparently contradictory Zen koan, which may be a way of expressing the fact that fame and success do not necessarily bring understanding of other people. The imagery in the following verses becomes increasingly surreal, leading the listener off in a number of different directions. We hear that the cloak and dagger dangles, madams light the candles, in ceremonies of the horseman, even the pawn must hold a grudge. The chess-related metaphor with the unforgettable phrase ceremonies of the horseman suggests a kind of ritualized warfare which the pawns in their game naturally object to. Cloak and dagger is a slightly comical description of shady dealings which here appear to hang, presumably like the sword of Damocles, over people's heads. In a reversal of traditional morality, the madams, who may be brothel keepers, are apparently showing their religious devotion by lighting candles. Statues made of matchsticks crumble into one another. It's a beautifully expressed summation of the futility of human aspirations. But the narrator's lover is apparently not affected by this, as she knows too much to argue or to judge. Again, her non-judgmental qualities are held in high esteem. We are then presented with a series of fleeting images, many of which seem to be related to literary texts. The surreal phrase, the bridge at midnight trembles, seems to be related to Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's poem, The Bridge, whose protagonist stands on the bridge at midnight, contemplating a lost love who has presumably died. The phrase "the country doctor rambles" may refer to Franz Kafka's short story A Country Doctor, a bizarre tale of medical failure with an extremely unreliable narrator. Banker's Nieces Seek Perfection appears to refer to Henry James's The Portrait of a Lady, whose heroine Isabel Archer is a banker's niece who attempts with limited success to negotiate the pitfalls of marriage in a misogynistic society. She certainly does not find perfection. We are told that these characters are expecting all the gifts that wise men bring, which will presumably not appear. These are people who are left to contemplate their own failure to achieve what they had set out to do in life. As such, they are the opposite of the narrator's lover, who realises that such striving to reach impossible goals is futile. In the final verse, the surreal image, "the wind howls like a hammer," suggests the presence of a mighty storm. This is confirmed by "the night blows cold and rainy." Finally, we are left with the haunting, "My love, she's like some raven at my window with a broken wing," suggesting that although the lover may be a wise philosopher, she still needs the narrator's protection. In the Icelandic sagas, the raven represents wisdom, while in Native American mythology, it is a symbol of change and transformation. Some commentators have compared this raven to the subject of Edgar Allan Poe's celebrated poem, but that raven is a harbinger of death and depression, whereas this raven is a beautiful but damaged creature. Dylan's raven is closer to the much more sympathetic bird in Blake's The Human Abstract, which makes its nest in a hidden tree which the gods of the earth and sea sought through nature to find. In this remarkable final image, it is suggested that despite the subject of the song being so self-possessed, life has been rather cruel to her. The narrator sincerely intends to protect her and heal her. This seems to indicate that she needs him as much as he needs her. Thus, she is not, like the woman in She Belongs to Me, a dazzling figure to bow down to. Love Minus Zero is a remarkable fusion of the poetic techniques which Dylan had picked up from his extensive reading and the traditions of the blues and country music which form the bedrock of his art. Despite its use of dreamlike imagery and logic, it is a very real and extremely moving evocation of love, which, after the heartbreak of songs like Ballad in Plain D, I'll Keep It With Mine and One Too Many Mornings, and the uncertainty of Love Is Just a Four-Letter Word, seems to represent a considerable breakthrough. Dylan now seems unburdened by the pain of love he had experienced in the past. Soon, on Blonde, which is largely an album of love songs, he will extend the possibilities of the genre even further to create the massive poetic tapestries of Visions of Johanna, Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands. The lovers in these highly ambiguous works are multidimensional creatures, while the songs themselves tilt at universal truths. The characters in these songs, like the lover in Love Minus Zero, will become transformed, like the mythical figure in Ovid's Metamorphosis, into representations of love itself, with all its attendant confusions and contradictions, but also with its moments of ecstatic realisation and poetic transcendence. So that was rather a marathon one. This is the end of part 3. I do hope you enjoyed that. Please go and have a look at my website, chrisgregory.org. You can get copies of my books there, including Determined to Stand, which is a study of Dylan's later work. So I will see you next time when I will be talking about Senor from Street Legal. So speak to you then. Bye bye.
Is it rolling, Bob?
Is it rolling, Bob?
Is it rolling, Bob?